Well, hello everyone, and welcome to this online info session for the Diploma in Creative Writing. My name is Hannah, and I am facilitating this session. And in a moment, I will pass on to Dr. John Ballum, who will be leading the session. But just a few housekeeping notices before we get started. So just so you're all aware, this event is being recorded, and it will be sent to everyone who registered after the session has finished. And your cameras and microphones will remain switched off throughout the session. But if you would like to ask a question, you can use the Q&A function within Zoom, and you can ask questions throughout the presentation, but there will be time for these questions to be answered by John and by the course administration team that I have with me today, Claire, Nina, and Claire, and they will be answering questions throughout the session. And just to let you know, we do need to finish promptly at 12:45 today. So if we don't get to your question, please do get in touch with us at undergraduate.conted.ox.ac.uk, and we will get back to you. I think that's everything from me, so I will now pass on to John.
Hello, everyone. Thank you very much for joining us. Straightforwardly, the plan that we have today is for me to begin by saying a little bit about who I am. And then more importantly, we'll get on to an overview of the course and the different study options, or two quite distinct ways of undertaking the course. We also want to say a little bit about why studying at Oxford is such a good option for you. Many of the things that are available here are going to be different and very satisfactory, I think you'd find. We'll also say a little bit about some of the questions that I'm sure you're going to have, which will be about how to apply. So I think that's something that people are often most curious about. And then at the end, we'll also take some questions about anything else on your mind relative to the course. So let's get started. So Hannah, please, the next slide. There we are. Yes, so this is me. Not terribly exciting here, and I won't hang about over this. You can see some of the details about my background there. Importantly, relevant today, I've been teaching on this course since 2004, and I've been director of it since 2008. So I've had a chance to sort of get used to things and to see how everything works and to make a contribution to how things proceed. So I think this is not going to be terribly interesting for you. So let's move on to the bit that I'm sure you're curious about. Thank you. Right. So some of the key factors about this course. Importantly, it is part-time, and it lasts for 2 years. We emphasize that it is part-time. Occasionally, someone will say, I'm terribly keen and committed. Can I do both years at once and undertake both years within a year? And the answer to that is no, for a whole host of reasons that I haven't got time to explain. But no, it is a 2-year course undertaken part-time. We anticipate an average commitment on your part of about 14 hours a week. Now, there are 2 study options. They're quite distinct. One of them is in person in Oxford, where you join us, and the other is primarily taught online. It's referred to as the blended pathway for reasons I'll explain in a moment. But the majority of that, overwhelmingly, is an online study. It's taught at the level of a second-year undergraduate degree. So it's not altogether introductory. It's quite sophisticated, and it will make considerable demands on you intellectually, academically, and creatively. So it is quite a sophisticated course. The overall goals, of course, are going to be to strengthen your ability in prose, poetry, drama, and analytical reading. That seems like a broad portfolio of tasks, and it is. And it's an unusual course in that respect because there are none of these areas that you can dodge. You will have to learn the basics, at least, of all of them, and commit yourself to assignments in all of those areas. However, you may specialize in a genre of your own choosing for the lengthiest piece of work that you submit each year of the course. You do 2 of those at the end of the year, and I'll say more about that later. But if you're particularly are drawn to, say, novel writing or writing screenplays, you would have an opportunity to develop that individually. And we are looking now, the new application dates will be for students beginning the course in October of 2026, so a year from this month. So the next slide, please. Now this one, I like this slide particularly because it shows one of our students exuberantly at the point at which she received her award. The student you see there left this course and went on to a master's degree at Cambridge and is now doing a doctorate at the University of East Anglia. So as it says here, enthusiastic writers, and that's what you see here. We emphasize that you need a strong commitment to improving your craft. That is, it's not a course for someone whose only ambition is to make loads of money and win lots of prizes and be known all around the world. That's not what it's about. You are to be on this course, we need to feel that you are committed to becoming a really skilled writer. And that will mean taking things apart and putting them back together over and over again. And you must accept that that is an important part of the craft. And even if it's difficult sometimes, it is something that you'll need to practice and need to take on the chin when the going gets tough. So you will need to enjoy revision, rewriting, starting over and taking some chances. We also would like to know that you're already active as a writer. Now what we mean by that is that writing is something that you've already found a place for in your life, that you're doing some of this under your own momentum, whatever mode that takes, or if it takes many, that's absolutely fine, but it's something that you're going to do with some level of commitment already. And as it says there rather modestly, not essential to have been published. It absolutely is not essential to have been published. A comparatively small number of students on the course are published when they arrive. Not to say that some aren't, often in other medium, say academic writing or something else quite separate. But we do not begin with the expectation that you come onto the course with a 3-book deal from Penguin. So you don't need to worry about that. And importantly, we should emphasize you don't need any particular formal qualifications in anything to do the course. We have had people undertake it and successfully complete it without any prior formal academic qualifications whatsoever. We are open to the committed and the talented in whatever form that takes. The next slide, please. Right, so let's talk a little bit about the detail. The course content, which you can see on the website, there are 3 terms in the Oxford academic year. And in the first term, we bring you in gently with a little bit of an introduction to the 3 major media that you'll be working in. You'll do some life writing in prose, you'll be experimenting with poetry, and you will also be experimenting with drama. We felt it was important that you get a kind of overview of each of these major areas, because you'll find things about them immediately that you didn't know, and you will find attractions surprising yourself with each of them, I suspect. So we bring you into the course with a sample of everything so that you can get set up. At the beginning of the next term, and this would be the January term just after Christmas, you begin looking at literary works in all of these media as more of a critic than as a creator. You begin to explore how texts are made, what the skills involved and manifested in each kind of work actually are, and what the language is for talking about them. So this becomes a way for you to understand your own experience as a reader, but also to understand your experience as a writer. What are readers seeing in your stuff? What can you see in it that'll enable you to evolve it in a more nuanced fashion? We then move on to the end of the second portion of that second term to one of the most popular and certainly the largest module of the first year, which is writing fiction. Now that begins with writing short and long fictions. You explore all the techniques, all the strategies for approaching this, what it means to create fictional worlds, fictional people, and also the intersections with between fiction and real life, because many people think they have a story that is based on something they know. So we give you a lot of opportunity to develop those skills. The third term in the first year is divided in two, the first half of which is a much more detailed exploration of writing poetry, which is something that many people are, let's say, nervous about when they begin the course. And they find very quickly that there are many kinds of poetry, and there's almost always one that will suit you. And the poetry tutors are keen to find what kind of poetry will be yours. You then move on to something which, again, people feel they understand, but yet may not have that much experience with, which is stage drama. It's often quite challenging to understand that a play is a one-off experience, that it's quite tricky to work with a live dynamic and to communicate to a live audience, and that it entails a lot of very careful crafting on the part of a writer. So you'll spend the second half of that third term looking at that in real detail. It's one, again, that people often find quite striking. It is challenging, it is difficult, but it is also very, very rewarding when it works. So that is the majority of the course input content in the first year. So the next slide, please. Year two, I suppose it would be unsurprising to say that you do consolidate, broaden, and what you've done in year one. And guess what? It's a bit more difficult. You start with writing in the first term, you start with writing short stories particularly, and the set of skills that goes with that kind of fiction, and then move on to writing longer fictions. You won't write entire novels under our tutelage, it's certainly not in that term, but you will write significant parts of them with specific goals, with to a specific rubric. So you'll find yourself exploring what it means to create characters that can sustain a reader for hundreds of pages, to unfold a plot that has momentum and dramatic tension. And those are all skills that people, I think, come onto the course really, really looking for. Most people are most experienced as an audience for fiction and very much look forward to this opportunity to develop it. Then, as in year one, you move on to more reading for writers, more literary criticism. It's more sophisticated in year two, partly because you can build on what you've done in year one, but we add new things to the list of options here. We include life writing in it in year two. So you begin to look at what it means not simply to be an observer of the truth, but to be someone who tries to fashion an impression of the truth for others, and what that means to critics of writing, to readers of writing, and to writers of writing, because it is quite a subtle process. You then move on to a longer module in writing poetry. Now, this may seem a little daunting, but in year two, you get to the really juicy and terribly, terribly impressive aspects of writing poetry in much more formal forms. So you'll find yourself writing sonnets and sestinas and other curious things like iambic pentameter and so on, because it will unlock for you a lot of the mysteries of it. And you'll find that once you've possessed those things, like the ability to play a musical instrument, you'll find yourself able to express what you want to say in means that before were a closed book to you. So it is one, and I may say one of the ones that surprises people most, that they find most compelling when they leave the course, is nearly everybody at the end of year two says, whatever else happens, I know that I'll continue writing poetry. And then the one that is the most seductive of them all, perhaps, is moving on to broadcast drama. And for most people, that means writing feature films. When you start writing things with a view to spending £250,000 or $250,000 per page of your script, and you can have planes crashing and explosions and seductive heroes and heroines with heartthrobs, everybody thinks, oh, I know all about this. I watch films all the time. I cannot wait to do this. So many people really, really find that bit electrifying. So it is, as you see, overall quite a varied two-year structure, and there's something we think quite stimulating in every module you do. So that's the overall picture of what the main course input looks like. So the next slide, please, Hannah. Now then, very importantly, there are two ways to study on this course, one of which is actual in-person study in Oxford. If you're in the UK or close to the UK, we do have people come from countries in proximity. The meetings are at one of our venues in Oxford. You meet on Saturdays for a very long day. There are 4 classes per day from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. You have 4 of those Saturday sessions every term, or almost every term. And additionally, there is a Sunday day school once per term where we bring in someone that you don't work with elsewhere on the course, say a poet or a screenwriter or a literary critic, who will give you a new way of looking at things, a perspective. We do try to make contrasting perspectives on this too. That is, if we have a very literary fiction author for your main module, we might bring in someone with a very popular what can I say, populist look at writing fictions. So we'll try to bring in tutors with different approaches for you. Additionally, you will have one-to-one tutorials on every assignment that you write, and 2 or 3 for your longer projects. You'll have one-to-one meetings with a specialist in that area. So a poet for your poetry, a playwright for your plays, and so forth, who will look at your work in detail, discuss with you the fantastic achievements and the areas you still need to grow. Those are an enormously important part of Oxford teaching, and something that nearly everyone looks forward to. And the other thing that people often look forward to, almost from the beginning of the term and right the way to the end of the year, something they look back on fondly, is the summer school. For this, you're in Oxford every day for a week, with classes every morning, tutorials and readings in the afternoons and evenings. It's quite intense. You have sessions on all media of writing, and you get to work with your colleagues close by every day for a week, and you're copiously catered for while you're in Oxford. So it's a very pleasing experience. Nearly everyone very much looks forward to that and enjoys it. So shall we move to the next one, please? Now, study option 2, and this affects about 80% of the students on the diploma, will be studying primarily online. This is really very sophisticated. We use an online media that includes lots of teaching tools purposefully built for online learning, things to watch, things to listen, things to read, things to interact with. There are all kinds of cool tools and surveys and charts and graphs and all kinds of funky things for you to do. And the classroom dynamic is maintained with the use of online teaching forums. So your tutors are there every day, for some of the time at least, to see what everyone's up to, and they respond to your comments and initiate further comments from you for the entire week. And you're asked to do all the same kinds of tasks you would be doing in a classroom, and your colleagues can all read and comment on those and share them with you, and you grow together as a group. The more you put in, the more you get out. So it is a very satisfying experience, most people find. The study forums are also a permanent feature of the course. They are there for you for the entire 2 years. So you have literally a written record of everything that's gone on, and you can refer back to it. You can download the documents. You can get transcripts of the videos and everything. So you can make yourself a permanent resource out of what you find there. Just as with the in-person option, you have one-to-one tutorials online with tutors specializing in each of the areas that you're studying and who focus on your particular work for each assignment. Now, a little bit differently, because you don't have the Sunday day schools, you have a 2-week summer school, which is a truly joyful occurrence that comes usually at the very end of July or the first week of August. It's a fortnight in Oxford with classes every day. Some of the tutors you would recognize from online learning, but many of them are ones you won't have met elsewhere. There are lectures every day, there are classes every day, and you'll have most likely a tutorial or so while you're here or shortly before. So that is a very exuberant experience. This year, all of the cohorts were in Oxford at the same time. We had something to the tune of 90 odd students there. So they get to meet one another and form real friendships that way. So those are the two main options for study. Shall we go to the next one, please? Now then, what you can do to prepare before the course starts. Now, the diploma itself doesn't run these courses, but they're optional for our students to undertake. We do, the department and the university make available a kind of set of skill courses to enable those who haven't been in study for some time to either gain or restart their skill sets to be ready to make the most of their upcoming studies. So they give you guidance in how to follow assignment instructions, which is quite very important. It's very easy to go wrong when you're excited about the assignment you're writing, to have forgotten what it's really asking you. How to respond to the questions, to try to make the most of the question, take ownership of it, and really explore what it can do for you. To manage your time effectively, because much of your learning, when you're not actually under our BDI with tutelage, you need to be looking after your own time and using it productively to get the best out of what time you have available. And also importantly, we'll talk about this in a moment, the huge resources of Oxford University, it will give you some guidance in how to locate and to use things that can benefit your creative work. So next, please. Okay, so the assessment, the nail-biting, nerve-wracking, keep you up late at night stuff. You're going to be assessed on 2 pieces of writing every term. The details of all of those are given to you at the very beginning of the course, so you can see a year in advance what you're going to be doing, what's to be expected of you, when the due dates are, what the size and nature of the project will be, and those are submitted, and I may say anonymized, by the administrative team, who then provide them for the tutors to mark anonymously. They're returned anonymously and then returned to you, having been moderated by at least one additional pair of eyes before they're returned to you. So we do aim for fairness at every level as far as we can manage it. You'll be awarded a mark, and then you'll be given the opportunity to have a face-to-face tutorial with the tutor, usually, not always, but usually the tutor who did the assessment, to talk you through the details of your work and where its areas of improvement might lie and what you've excelled at. And very importantly, the one that is most captivating for students is the end of year portfolio submission. For these, you choose the kind of work you want to do. So you may want to work on a novel, or you may want to work on a collection of poems. You choose, and we offer you a supervisor to help you with your studies, who then meets with you, and then you complete this project. It's submitted, looked at by another pair of eyes, and then it goes back to you for revisions. It's then assessed again at the end of the year, and you have another exit tutorial on it. But with these, you get to decide what it is you're going to do, and the tutor will buy into your project to help you get the best out of it. And I like the fact they've put this in italics here. There are no written examinations at the end of the course. You're off that terrible hook of sitting in a room full of crowded, coughing, shuffling people, tapping pencils and trying to answer questions on the spur of the moment. You don't have to do that here. All the assessment is based on your own creative work that you've had an opportunity to prepare. So that's good news. Shall we go on another, please? Now, this is important. Keep this in mind. The applications for next year's entry, you can see them there below. You can see them on the website. And if for any reason you forget this, the slides will be available to you later. But do take note of those deadlines. These are called gathered fields with the university. Because we get so many applications, the university feels it's best that we monitor them in batches, which we do. And we do really recommend that you try to get in your application early if possible, because in case anything comes up, if there's trouble over any issue with it, something's incomplete or a reference is missing or something, it gives us an opportunity, gives you an opportunity to follow it up and make sure your application's been in on time. But we do look at every application we get, and we go through them absolutely methodically, a few of us to assess them and shortlist candidates for interview. So do keep that in mind. The admin team is superlative, and they will contact you about anything that appears to be amiss with your application and make sure that everything is complete at their end. And they have a very quick turnaround time. They make sure that you get replies and we get replies to you as fast as we can facilitate it. So it's a very good process. And the next one, please. Here's the fun bit. Now, the slide you see there shows the Sheldonian Theatre in Oxford, the very centre of Oxford, built by Sir Christopher Wren. It is where the award ceremony happens at the end of it. So if you complete the course and you would like to have your award handed to you by the Vice-Chancellor of the university, show up here and we will call out your name, and you can process in front of hundreds of candidates and your own family and friends to receive your award in person. It's quite a formal occasion for all of us, and it's a great deal of fun, and you get well recognized by your peers and everyone important to you for the achievement you will have completed. Other things about Oxford University which we like to emphasize: the university card, which you get when you join the course, will give you access to the facilities and many of the college facilities in Oxford. There are, for instance, off the top of my head, 24 libraries that you can access in person. Wave the card like Willy Wonka's golden ticket, and the doors will magically pop open to you. But also museums and galleries, the botanical gardens, all sorts of things. Now, for those of you who are not going to be in Oxford apart from the summer school, the Bodleian Library has vast resources. I think it rivals one or two others on the planet for being the largest library system. And you will have access to all of that online, and an enormous range of resources is also available online. So wherever you're living and working, you can find the Oxford University resources at your fingertips, and a huge amount of material can be delivered to you on your computer screen. And as you see, yes, the award ceremony, that could be you part of that 2 years down the road. So I think that concludes everything we want to say about that. Shall we move on to the contact details? I think Hannah will hover on this one a moment here, but again, you'll get a copy of this if you ask for the slides at the end. But do get in touch with us here. You can see more information about the course and who to contact if you have further questions. I think we're moving on now to just about time for some further questions. I'll just say at the beginning, very often people would like to ask questions about fees or financing. That is, questions about negotiating whether you're a home student or an overseas student and such like, or whether there are funding opportunities you can apply for. Please direct those questions not to this Q&A session, but to my colleagues online who will be able to answer those for you. At this time, if you would please, could you keep your questions to do with aspects of the course about which you're curious?
Okay, I've just unmuted and I can let you know any questions that come in through the Q&A. So if anyone has any questions for John, please do leave them for us. I can see we've had a good many questions answered by the admin team already, so thank you for that, Claire, Nina, and Claire. There's a question about linguistic prerequisites, which I think the admin team will answer. Here we go. With regard to being considered an active writer, please would you provide an example of previous applicants who satisfied this requirement?
That's a very good question. Most of the people that whose applications we read express some level of experience. That is, they might belong to a writers group. They might have done some writing and entered contests. But the important thing we want to know is that you have what is for you a personal routine, that you set yourself some goals, that you set yourself some challenges. Maybe you've bought some books or you watch web podcasts from writers or academics or other interested parties talking about the writing process, that you've undertaken some self-help skills in making yourself a better writer, and that you've made some inroads into learning what kinds of writing you enjoy, what stimulates you about writing, the kinds of things that are going to suggest you have an abiding curiosity and the willpower to sustain yourself for 2 full years of study. We'd like to know when you start the course that you're going to be someone who will buy into the challenges and also finish the course, as new materials presented to you, so that you've made some discoveries. That usually comes up in the applications, particularly, for example, in the personal statement. People will often say, well, I'm a keen writer. I try to get something in my diary every day, every week, whatever.
Thank you, John. So as I'm considering entry in 2027, is there a reading list I could have to get a head start?
That's a good question. It presupposes that the reading list never changes, of course. It does change somewhat year on year, but not much. We can offer you a reading list from past years if you write to one of the course admin folks on the undergraduate at Conted Oxoc UK email address. They can send you a cutout, as it were, of a reading list that we've used previously, so you can see the kind of things that are put there. Some it's quite specific, like how to write particular kinds of poems or how to write screenplays or something. Some of it will be inspirational texts for how to write really powerful life writing, or how to an example of a novel from which you could learn. So the reading list is very varied in that respect.
Brilliant, thank you. Could you please share the completion rate for the course?
I don't know if I know the actual completion rate. We have very few people who, as it were, drop out, although we often have people who suspend studies because the course is so large and is scattered around the world. Things interfere with folks' study, so they often will interrupt their studies for a year and rejoin us. The actual number of folks who drop out must be very small indeed. Guessing, I would say a couple of percent. I mean, it's very unusual to have anyone not complete the course.
Brilliant, thank you. How competitive is entry to the course? Do I need to submit an example of my work as part of the application?
That's 2 questions. You need to submit an example of your work as part of your application, definitely. The details for that are on the website. Don't exceed those enormously. Like if it says, a few thousand words in prose, don't send me 100,000 words in prose. Also, it's advantageous to put in your best work, not a sample of everything you've done. So if you've written a couple of mediocre poems, but a superlative short story, just send the short story. It's better to put your best foot forward. And I've already forgotten the first half of the question, Hannah, sorry.
Yes, no worries. How competitive is entry to the course?
There's no short answer to that. I would say statistically, which is a bit misrepresenting, but I would say it's about 2.5 applicants per place awarded, although that's going to vary year on year. The face-to-face cohorts are limited by space, so we have to be a bit more restricted in the numbers. But online cohorts, the blended pathway cohorts, we have a bit more flexibility. In the present year 2, we have 5 online blended pathway cohorts and 3 online blended year 1 cohorts. So we have some room to expand there. We like to offer places to qualified applicants if at all possible.
Brilliant, thank you. Aside from being passionate about writing, what can applicants do to improve their chances of acceptance?
We like, and we will ask at interview, for students to demonstrate a capacity to think on their feet, to be good communicators in a group, whether it's in person or whether it's going to be online, to have the adaptability to approach things which, even though they may be slightly nervous about, to just dig in and get on with it, make the best of it, and accept that not everything's going to be perfect first time. So evidence that you're that kind of dedicated individual is hugely helpful. We also like to know that you're interested in the writing that you profess to prefer. So in other words, if you say, I just adore mystery novels, then when we ask you about the kinds of things you read, evidence us some mystery novels. But if you say, oh, I'm terrified of poetry, we may say, well, what have you attempted? Try to have something in mind to say, well, I've been struggling through T.S. Eliot or something, and I've never got on with it. But at least give us the sense that you're making an effort to understand what's going on in the world of writing in different media. That you think, well, I don't much like films, but I do try to keep my finger on the pulse of what's going on, what's stimulating the public out there. But if it's something you particularly want to do, we want to know that you have some depth of experience in that area.
Lovely, thank you. I have completed 4 short writing courses through Oxford Online, and I'm currently in my 5th course. Does this count as being considered an active writer?
You betcha. Yeah, that's lovely. Pleased to hear it. That shows well, resilience and adaptability, and the will to put yourself out there and get on with it and do it. So yes, we would find that a huge help that you've made an effort to see what it feels like to be a student, to offer an opinion before you're sure it's the right opinion or the acceptable opinion. Yeah, so well done. Yeah, that would feel very good.
Thank you. There's a question here, but we might need some more clarification on it. Are you teaching stylistic items?
Not quite sure what that means. If the reference is to are we trying to improve your what is commonly called your voice as a writer? Our goal is not to fit you into a paradigm, but to find what your particular individual voice is going to be like, what your own areas to excel are. If it means, do we teach you techniques of, say, writing mysteries or writing romance novels or something? Yes, all of that is broadly doable in the scope of the course. In terms of mechanics down to grammar and punctuation and so on, yes, the thing needs to look pretty professional. And if there's something that's impeding your progress with that, like a specific learning need of some kind, we will do our best to facilitate you in gaining whatever you need to improve that. So so at all those levels, yes, we do teach style.
Yes, I think that answers that question. Thank you. Will this course include copywriting techniques and practical examples?
No, it's that is an adjacent area, but it isn't one that is taught as a part of the core input of the course. I think it would be exceedingly likely if, particularly with tutors you work with one-to-one or on an extended basis, like a portfolio supervisor, if you asked them, they would be more than happy to help you with advice catered to your individual needs. But it isn't a unit on the course.
Thank you. Are there any specific sources that you recommend we could do a deep dive on? For example, podcasts, webinars, books, documentaries?
I think probably the best thing to do as a beginning of a beginning would be to isolate authors in any medium whose work you enjoy and see what that author has to say about their work. Most major authors are committed to making, if not podcasts, at least interviews wherein they discuss what it means to them, and then follow up on that if they're on their web pages, if they have them, and so forth, to see what authors you admire, and then find out what's close to that. What are authors in the same medium saying about the kind of work they're doing? I would say begin there. Kind of general style books There are many that are popular with students. Stephen King's On Writing is a perennial favorite. Save the Cat, which is largely to do with screenwriting, is another popular one. But any of those that might offer you some insight into how writing is taught might also help you bridge a gap there a little bit to see this is how tutors go about it. That could be a bonus as well. But I would certainly begin by looking at what my own favorites are saying.
Brilliant. Thank you, John. Does it help if I have completed a Cambridge creative writing course with my application?
I am so tempted to be snide in the Oxford versus Cambridge blue versus blue version to say, of course, that only makes you worse off. No, absolutely not. Of course, that's tremendous. Well done. Yes, that helps. We frequently have, let's call them migrations from the other place in the Fens to join us at Oxford. So yes, that's not at all unusual. And as I've said earlier, you do see people go from here to there, so that's perfectly normal.
Brilliant. Thank you. My friend has recently undertaken an MA course in poetry. He is being taught formal techniques, but is finding this is constricting his creativity. Do you allow for spontaneous writing, which is not subject to poetic techniques?
Utterly. I mean, it depends on the nature of well, what you're describing here. In terms of your development as, let's say, a poet, then absolutely, the tutors will try to foster it and move you towards what you're doing best and what will communicate with the reader best. When it comes to formal assessments, you have to be aware that there are, after all, rubrics that level the playing field for everyone undertaking that assessment. So if it says you must write the beginning of a novel or you must write 100 lines of poetry, you would need to observe that rubric in order to have the work assessed. But in terms of what you did within that rubric, that would be under your own auspices. So yes, you'd be perfectly free to explore your own creativity, definitely.
Brilliant. Thank you, John. So there's a slide about preparation study week. Do I apply for this separately or is it part of the course?
It's adjacent to the course and you'll be given information and instructions on joining it before you ever begin the diploma. So if you've been, as it were, signed on as a candidate, an applicant, a starting student for the diploma, you would be sent the information about the pre-course study week or weeks.
Lovely, thank you. So there's a few questions here. Is there a pre-course reading list? I think you spoke to that already.
If you're offered a place on the course, you can ask the course admin team to send you the most recent reading list, which would give you a very good setup.
Brilliant, thank you. Are foreign authors allowed?
If you mean as does the course include teaching with writers whose first language is not English as texts for recommended reading and so forth? Absolutely, they abound. If you mean as writers whose first language is not English who are students on the course, then yes, those also abound. Possibly, I should think at least half the students on the course have a first language other than English, although the course is taught and assessed in English. So anything you produce would have to be, even if it's a translation of Japanese or something, it would have to excel as English.
Brilliant, thank you. I can see we have a couple more questions, but unfortunately, I think we're going to have to wrap things up here as we need to finish at 12:45. But if your question hasn't been answered today, or if you think of anything after the session, please do get in touch at undergraduate at conted.ox.ac.uk, and we would love to hear from you. Thank you, John, for answering all of those questions, and for Claire, Nina, and Claire as well.
Well, thank you very much, everyone, and I'll say goodbye for now. It's been lovely to have you here, and we hope to see you again.